Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So, if you hear any other kind of noises around, I have my window open right now and it's pretty breezy out there, but hopefully that doesn't get caught by the mic or anything. So, I'm glad I waited a bit to start my movie reviews. I got back from my trip and I stayed up trying to get all the videos done of the talking about the books I read, which were all kind of pretty short anyway. I just wanted to get them out of the way, and I thought I'll wait a day or so for like my movie ones, and it's now the next morning, and I'm so glad I waited. I'm actually feeling very, very energized right now, which doesn't really happen much, but I guess I was so tired. I went to bed after I finished the book reviews, and I actually passed out and I was asleep the whole night, and that hasn't happened in like a year probably. So I know that I actually got some sleep for once, which feels great. And because of that, and I'm in a good mood, I decided I was going to start my movie reviews with talking about Elio, because I watched 5 movies, and I was originally going to go in the order that I watched them in mostly, and then I realized that means I'd have to start with one that was kind of a bummer and very serious, so I didn't want to do that while I was like this awake and everything and energetic. So I thought Elio was probably a good way to start. I watched 2 animated movies and the rest were live action. Some of them were like superhero movies, some of them were kind of serious. So I thought, I'll start with the animated ones first. But yeah, I'm glad I got to watch this. I remember I watched the trailer, and some of the plot stuff and just the direction I thought the movie was going to go in was different from the actual movie. It was kind of interesting, because from what I vaguely remembered about like the first trailer or something, it was about like this boy and his mom, and I think it was that he didn't want to get abducted by aliens, and then it ended up happening. And then with the newer trailers, I noticed they changed around some things where now it's about this boy and his aunt. And the change from the mom to the aunt does change around things with the story as well. And this time it's that he desperately does want to be abducted by aliens. So I was kind of wondering as I was watching of like, I wonder how many like rewrites it went through or anything. Or what I kind of thought the original the original trailer and the story they were kind of going for, it sounded more interesting to me. But I did enjoy this. I didn't take notes as I was watching this movie. I kind of just wrote a really long, like one giant paragraph, kind of going through my general thoughts. This will be a bit shorter. But before I go off of that, I want to say I liked this one. I'm glad that I liked it. I'd heard, because this came out like June of last year or something. And it was in theaters. I didn't go to see it, and then it got put in Disney Plus. And I heard people have like mixed things about it, or that it wasn't really good, and I was bummed because this is like this is a Pixar one, yeah. I'm trying to remember if WALL-E is too. I think so. I think this is like the 4th movie about like space and stuff. I'm trying to think, because there's like WALL-E, and that's one of my favorite Pixar movies of all time, or probably like my favorite. This one kind of reminded me of it a little bit. I'll sort of explain. And I know there's the movie about Buzz Lightyear that people didn't like. I haven't seen that one. And then there's Strange World, which I was interested in it. I thought it sounded cool, of them going on like being on a planet and kind of going the direction. I don't really know much about Strange World, or at least of what I'm hoping. That I wish this one and WALL-E went, or I guess especially this one, of being more about like a space adventure. But my friends were saying in the movie group that Strange World is like really, really bad, and that I dodged a bullet by not seeing it. So I don't know. But yeah, I kind of because of that, I forgot that Strange World and Lightyear existed. So originally in my notes, I wrote that the only other big space movie was WALL-E. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with this one. I think just because I'd been hearing things about it, I went into it with sort of lower expectations. Not that this was perfect or anything. I definitely have my complaints about this movie. But yeah, I'm gonna go through my notes now. Let me see. I liked the theme of the movie of being the main character. He feels alone, and how it's a movie about like how you shouldn't be alone, I guess. Because he wants to get abducted by aliens because he doesn't fit in with the people around him. And the other thing with Elio's character is that his parents had passed away, and he's being raised by his aunt, and he's kind of upset about that, and about like both about losing his parents but also being raised. And his aunt's like a really nice person. It's just she, you know, is someone who is kind of more career focused and doesn't really know how to raise a kid. In that aspect, actually, now that I think about it, it kind of does remind me of the movie Megan in that way, because that one's also about an aunt that suddenly has to take care of their niece or nephew. And well, with that one, it's that it's someone that isn't really good with kids and doesn't know what they're doing. And with this one, I think the aunt is better with kids, but she at first is just kind of troubled by Elio and is considering shipping him to like boarding school, and that's when he ends up getting abducted by the aliens and stuff. Or he's treated as kind of like the weird kid that doesn't fit in because he's constantly trying to get abducted by aliens, and he has his own like kid quirks and stuff of having like a made-up language, Alienese, and the aunt kind of just wants him to like go make friends with like regular kids instead of trying to get abducted by aliens and stuff. So they're kind of like at odds throughout like the beginning of the movie, but you do get to see more of her character. Like while Elio's having his space adventures, the aunt is stuck with a clone of Elio and knows that it's not that it's a clone, but knows like, okay, this isn't my nephew. I need to figure out what's going on. And she does get roped into the space adventure towards the end, which was pretty nice. But yeah, it's this whole thing of like, is the Earth alone? And it turns out no, there's like alien life out there, but also Elio feeling alone. And there's this really nice scene towards the end where he's in this like alien spacecraft, and there's all of these people from different countries on the radio that are helping him. And there's some nice little moments like that. I really like the beginning of this movie, actually, when it's this sort of flashback, I don't know how far into the past, where the aunt is talking about Elio to a friend or something, and he wanders off and he ends up in this room, which is like this space exhibit or something, and he just kind of lays on the floor and is listening, and from that point onward he's like super fascinated with space. I thought that was a pretty cool scene. But yeah, I like how it kind of goes hand in hand of like the main character feeling alone, but also the Earth is sort of alone as well, of, you know, are there aliens out there? So I liked how those connected. And then Elio does end up making a friend. There's this little alien creature, the one, not the little blue thing on the front of the cover, which you'd think, seeing it on the poster, you think like, oh, that's gonna be his like other companion or something, but no, there's this little creature that is able to put these sort of like badges or something on people, and it basically allows people with different languages and the alien languages where they can like basically all understand each other and stuff. There's a device like that kind of like that in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as well. I really need to reread that book. It's such a good series. But yeah, it's kind of a similar thing. So like the little creature, the blue creature to the right of Elio is not like a companion or anything, just more of like, not even really a character, just kind of like a tool, basically. But the little worm dude on the left, that's Glorden. He's the other important character in the alien that Elio ends up befriending. And I like their friendship. And I like Elio as a main character too, where he's just like this normal kid that's sort of trying to find his place, and the whole thing with the plot. I think that's the one of the things I didn't really like with the movie was the story and the pacing and stuff, where it's basically that, besides it being kind of predictable, which I'll talk about in a bit, it feels kind of fast-paced, where Elio, it takes like a while into the movie. I thought the pacing was fine at the beginning, actually, where he meets some other kids and he ends up at like a summer camp, and then he finally gets taken by the aliens. I thought the movie setting up the characters and everything, and while he's still on Earth, was actually fine. It's like once he gets to space, I sort of have a problem where he's trying to... there's this whole thing where he lies about being the leader of Earth, which I thought that was going to be more of a thing with the plot. And, you know, you do have, like, the lie reveal trope and stuff, which I always get really tired of that. But it isn't really that much of the story as I thought it was going to be. He's not really having to pretend to be the leader of Earth that much. He's not even really with the other aliens that much either, but it's that he's trying to join the, what is it, like the planetary group or whatever, as like the leader of Earth, basically to be able to like stay up there and live there and not have to go back to Earth. He's like so desperate not to go back to Earth, and he ends up befriending this alien named Gordon, I think, and they end up becoming buddies. But Gordon's dad is like this space conqueror, which the designs are kind of funny because like their species looks like these like silkworms or something, which I think look really cute, honestly. But then they wear these big like mech suits or something that give them like the fake eyes and stuff, like the blue eyes at the top, and make them look really big, but they're like almost the same size as Elio and kind of just very silly looking. But it's to make them look more threatening, and they're these like space conquerors. I just like that whole idea that they're you know, they're like these sentient war machines is how they describe themselves, but then their actual form is just really like goofy looking. That's probably supposed to be the point where the dad wants to destroy the Space Galactic Federation or whatever it is, and none of the aliens, they're like all afraid of him, and Elio's like, I'm gonna go and talk to this guy, and it doesn't work, and then it turns into this thing where Elio befriends his son, and then they end up on Earth, because you don't really spend much time with any of the space stuff or the aliens, and that was the biggest disappointment for me with this movie. Actually, I really like the designs of like the main big spaceship that Elio ends up on, and all of these aliens that are on like the side of the poster. I think they have really cool designs, but you barely see them. Like, from the trailers and stuff, I thought this was because they show so much of those aliens and stuff, and the location Elio ends up in, and all the space stuff. I thought this was gonna be, and especially from looking at like the concept art in the credits, I thought this was gonna be a journey through space, but then the second half of the movie is just on Earth. And then the plot becomes really predictable too, where towards the second half of the movie, Gordon ends up trapped in this spacecraft, and I knew as soon as that happens that the rest of the movie would be about, because it ends up getting sent to Earth, of like, okay, they'd have to find a way back to space, and that Elio would choose to stay on Earth, because at the end, he's like proved himself of stopping the alien invasion, and the other aliens are like, yeah, you can stay here, you've like earned your place and stuff. And Elio and his aunt is also there, and Elio decides like, no, I'm gonna go home with my aunt. And that was like a nice scene and everything, but it's just there wasn't really any tension. It's kind of like in kids movies when like a main character dies, and usually they they have like a little funeral scene or whatever, and then they end up coming back to life. Like, there's not really any tension because it's going to turn out as a happy thing. With this one, because you see Elio and his aunt kind of bonding a bit more once he ends up going back to getting stuck on Earth and trying to get back into space. You know that he's going to end up choosing to stay with her. So I was just kind of more than anything waiting for that scene to be over. But there was like a lot of predictable stuff like that. I did like that there wasn't really a villain. I mean, Gordon's dad is this like war machine who's like trying to destroy the aliens. Like, he is the threat in that sense. But you also see from the very beginning that he cares very like deeply for his son, and then the way they end up stopping him is also nice, where it's basically just Gordon telling his dad like, I don't want to be a war machine, and the dad is so happy to see his son like unharmed and stuff. Or no, I think it's that Gordon's like dying or something and they have to get him back to space, that they end up like hugging it out or whatever, and he's like, yeah, I knew you didn't want to be a war machine, it was obvious. And then they end up like going home or something. But they do have it where, even though Elio's going to go to space, I think he's going to be able to visit. I don't think it's even like a permanent goodbye or anything. I don't really completely remember. But yeah, it didn't really like the dad is going to destroy the other aliens in their spaceship and stuff, but he didn't really feel like a villain. He isn't even really in much of the movie anyway, because like once Elio befriends his son, then like all of the other alien characters basically just don't matter. But the movie, I think because of the pacing and the second half of it being on Earth and stuff, it just felt really short. And with all the marketing being about the outer space stuff, I just wish we had more of that. I wish that it had the same kind of like vibe to it of this otherworldliness that Soul did. I really liked watching Soul, because I mean that one also has the thing where the characters do spend some time on Earth, but it's not really that much. And with that, it felt more important because it's like Joe and 22 kind of learning about the world and also appreciating like the little things with life. So it goes more with like the movie's themes and stuff, and it's actually kind of nice. But then with this one, with the time on Earth, it just feels like a rush to get back into space and doesn't really feel the same. But with Soul, it's like they spend a lot of the time in the great before or whatever, and just the whole design of it, it's kind of abstract and almost reminds me of some of the locations in like Inside Out 2. I feel like, I mean not Inside Out 2, but like the Inside Out movies, I feel like those and Soul have this sort of, some of the environments and stuff feel like kind of otherworldly, and it's really cool. It's and this movie, even though they have parts of it in outer space, it doesn't really ever feel like that. I don't know if this makes sense. But yeah, even in like WALL-E, they have I mean they are in space throughout most of the movie and stuff, but they're on this like giant cruise ship spaceship thing. So I was hoping with this movie that it was going to be which that part of WALL-E is like also fine too, because it looks like a spaceship inside, so that's kind of cool. But I was hoping that this movie, it was going to be about like a journey through space. Maybe he'd go to like different planets or something, but instead it's like, nope, second half of the movie is just gonna just be on Earth again. You spend like a while on Earth at the beginning too. But yeah, I wanted to like it more than I did, and at first I did. At first I really liked the movie actually, but then when I realized what the plot was, it was just kind of a letdown for me. But there were parts of it that I like, individual scenes I did really like I said, I liked the beginning when Elio is like kind of learning about outer space and stuff, and the parts when he's with Gordon are really fun, honestly, because their friendship's kind of like the heart of the movie. I like them both as characters. There's this part because Elio ends up with, it was kind of goofy to me, of like a clone that he ends up making. I thought there was going to be more problems with the clone. I thought it was going to be like the clone was going to be one of the clones, because there's like two clones. One of them's of Elio and one of them's of Gordon. I thought one of them was going to be like end up turning out to be the actual antagonist, or something was going to go wrong with the clones. But no, the clones work perfectly fine, where they're like perfect goody two-shoe like duplicates of, you know, the person they're based on. But yeah, Elio's aunt ends up with the clone, and Elio sees it first like, oh, they seem really happy together, and then you find out that the aunt has known the entire time, like, okay, this isn't my nephew, and she has all these notes and everything, and thinks that Elio's actually been taken by aliens, which he has, and is like desperately trying to get him back. And it's one of those things that shows like, yeah, she really does care about him and stuff. And what was I gonna say about the clone? And then the clone is sort of like a character too, which is kind of funny, of like the clone of Elio, I mean, perfectly fine to like sacrifice himself and stuff. And I thought the clone was going to continue to exist and just be like Elio's pal or something. But no. And then there's a clone of Gordon that ends up getting put inside of the war machine mech thing. And that's why I thought like, okay, is this character going to end up being the actual like antagonist or something? Because I thought something was going to go wrong with that or whatever. But no, then nothing really happens with that specific clone. So I feel like there could have been more stuff with the clone things, and then they kind of didn't really turn out to be anything. I wish there was more I could say on this, honestly, but that was actually kind of all of my notes. But so yeah, that's kind of my main oh wait, no, I'm sorry, there was something with the clone. The whole reason I talked about the clone was a scene I didn't even mention. No, there's a part when Elio, the actual Elio, ends up on a beach. It's like right when he gets sent back to Earth or something, and his aunt is there, and I think the aunt thinks she's talking to the Elio clone and not realizing it's like the real nephew, and they're having like a little heart-to-heart moment or something, and the aunt's saying about how something about Elio. I honestly I don't remember, but I feel bad because it was a really nice scene and I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't write it down or anything, because I actually watched this movie over a couple of days. I would watch like half an hour of it, and then I'd have to leave or go to bed or something, so I didn't get to watch this in one sitting, and I do kind of regret that. I feel like it would have been better if I had done that, but that's like a mistake that I made, you know, nothing against the movie. But yeah, so my general thoughts with it, I guess, are I really liked the characters a lot. I was happy about that. I like the designs of a lot of stuff, like of the side character aliens that barely are even in the movie, and there's a spaceship. The aliens, not like Gordon's species or whatever, but like the ones that are part of the galactic group or something, they have a spaceship that's really cool. It kind of reminded me of like a butterfly, or no, it reminded me of oh gosh, I don't know the character's name, but in Smash Bros. Ultimate, where they have the World of Light mode, the main villain is like this orb thing that has these sort of wings. I don't really know what it is, but the spaceship design in this movie kind of reminded me of, like, as soon as I saw it, and I almost wanted to mention it, I almost said something about it out loud, and then I remembered my mom was there and she doesn't know what Smash Bros is, so it kind of this kind of felt like a movie I would have watched with like my movie group or something. I think especially because I had just watched Turning Red with them right before I left. But yeah, characters and character designs were really cool and stuff. I kind of had to have the movie at low volume because I watched a lot of it at like late at night, so I didn't really get to hear the music much, but I'm sure it was probably really good. I've never watched a Pixar movie with music I didn't like, so I might have to actually listen to the soundtrack of this later, just out of curiosity, because I usually like the music for like space movies and stuff. But yeah, it didn't really feel like much of a space movie, which is a bummer, because like everything visually about it in the marketing made it seem like it was going to be that way, and then not really. I wanted it to be like a fun space adventure so badly, and it really wasn't, so that's my my biggest thing against this movie. But I still had a nice time with it. I'm glad that I got to watch it. I don't think it was like absolutely amazing, and in terms of Pixar space movies, WALL-E is still the best one to me. But yeah, I don't know if I'll ever watch Lightyear. I don't really have an interest in Lightyear, and then Strange World, like I said, I'm curious about, but we'll see. But yeah, it was nice to watch this. I was trying to specifically watch like newer Pixar Disney movies. The ones I knew are too new to be on like YouTube TV yet, so that way I wouldn't have, because I'm gonna be away from my computer for a while, but I'm gonna dog sitting, and I'm gonna have access to like a bunch of streaming services at my aunt's house, and hopefully Disney Plus. I'm really hoping this time I get to use it. So I thought, okay, well, I'm on this cruise ship and they have a limited option of movies. I saw that this and Zootopia 2 were on there, and I thought, let me just kind of get those out of the way than anything. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts in it. I'm mixed and a little disappointed, but I still had a fun time and glad I watched it. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye bye.